Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach.
And I'm Pepper.
And today we're going to be doing some Tap Talk.
Tap it, tap, tap, talk.
So this is a new series that we're going to try. We're going to do some two-player games of Tapestry and take new civilizations each time. That kind of, at least this time we tried to get two that we thought were sort of, had somewhat of a similar feel, but at the same time had different feels.
Different, yeah.
So just kind of see how they played out, and then kind of talk to you guys about how we think you should play these civs, or what our strategies were while playing them.
Yeah. What did I have? I had the Riverfolk.
Oh yeah, and just so you know, some of these, this Riverfolk one was in the Tapestry expansion, so that is not in the base game. But yes.
So this one let me cover my impassable lands in my
Capital City.
Capital City, and whenever I covered the last impassable land in a district, I would get a resource.
Mm-hmm.
So a good way to generate resources with that.
Right, and with that, did you still get resources when you filled your square?
Yes.
Okay,
With that as well.
So yeah, that's a good way.
It also gives me 4 points per district with at least 2 impassable.
At the beginning of the game.
At the beginning of the game. So that was a good 28 points. And then at the end it would be negative 1 point per visible impassable land.
Did it have anything else that it really did?
No, not really.
Okay. And I had the Nomads. So for the Nomads, they prefer to expand their civilization outwards rather than focusing on their capital city. So where you were kind of focusing on your capital city in a way, I was not focusing on mine quite as much. And
Typically, going out here on the board.
Typically, one of the things I do in Tapestry is focus on my capital city. So this was definitely a little different to me.
You fill your capital like half the time.
Probably. So in this one, whenever I gain a building or landmark, I may place it either in my capital city or on the map in one of 2 locations. I can place it on a territory that I control, containing exactly one other token. So if I've got an outpost or building already out there, if I do, I can gain a resource. Opponents cannot conquer those territories because they will then have 2 on there.
Yeah, that would count as 2.
Yep. And then otherwise, I can put it on an empty territory adjacent to one that I control, and that just gives me control of that territory, but it is not a conquer action. And it is considered an outpost if an opponent conquers it. And obviously you still will gain any victory points and whatnot for placing your buildings, even if you choose to put them out there versus here.
Nice.
So yeah. So I guess, what did you think right away when we chose these 2, kind of just thinking they were somewhat similar, and I kind of let you choose, and you chose the Riverfolk. Did you think that versus the Nomads, they would kind of be the better option?
Yeah, I did. I just seemed, although that is a wild resource for going out on the map, I just felt like it'd be a little more beneficial to get the resources for covering up the spots while also working towards completing columns and rows and districts.
Right.
So that'd just be a little more beneficial.
Right, because yeah, it seems like typically your capital city will score you more points than ownership of land.
Yeah.
I probably would have picked that as well, just because that plays more to how I typically play the game.
Yeah.
But I think playing this, I think this is actually, surprisingly, I've played Tapestry quite a few games. I think I've played almost every civilization at least once, but the Nomads is actually one I think I have only played one time. So
I don't think I've played with either of these going into this, which is very odd because it's one of my most played games, and that one is from the original game.
Right. So that one's really surprising because I don't know if you've played the expansion quite as much.
I think this is the 3rd time.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, so when I got the Nomads, I guess my strategy going into the game, what I was thinking is, okay, I'm going to try to benefit from this as much as I can. So I want to try to get all my outposts out there, so that I can also try to put a building on each one to get all those resources from these.
Yeah.
So that'd be eight bonus resources. I figured if I could do that, that would be kind of the best that I could do.
Yeah, probably more than putting them in here. It would have gotten you more points with the lines and columns,
Yeah.
but that would have probably only amount to like 3 resources with filling
Right.
out the city.
Right. So yeah, I think it definitely was better for me to focus on that. But the worst part is you kind of ended up going. So yeah, I was mainly focusing on the exploration of military tracks right away, and then you kind of focused on those same exact ones in the same order.
I did that. Yes.
Which I don't know. Is that your plan right away based off of these, or?
Well, I wanted to get as many buildings as possible. And I
Mhm.
know that they kind of benefit each other, the science and technology, military exploration
Mhm.
tracks. And the science is doesn't give you as many buildings, or at least it has a choice between a roll
Right.
and a building over here.
Right. A
So I
roll
did-
with benefits and a building.
Yes. So I usually don't get that many science buildings off,
hmm
so I decided to go up these 2 tracks. And as well, some of the exploration tiles have income buildings on them.
hmm
I felt like that would be a good strategy to get those and possibly conquer them and get them again.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it ended up working better for you than it did for me. That kind of you going up those kind of put me in a really bad spot, especially since you had a few squares that only had like one dot
Yeah.
that needed to be filled, so you were able to extend your first
Yeah.
income, or before you take your second income, for quite a while, versus me. So yeah, kind of that first initial income phase, we were both going up the exploration track a little bit, and I was one short of getting up to the next spot for that building, and then you ended up snagging that building,
Yes.
which, like you said, you wanted to fill in as much as possible, and to get all those extra resources, which is kind of the same thing I was trying to do. Basically, I think both of these, you're just trying to do as much as you can to fill in the different things for those bonus resources. And then, so yeah, you stole that from me. And then I tried to go up the military track in the next one.
I'm like, you know what? I'm going up that military too.
And I did get the first one in that one, and it didn't matter to me as much, because this time I was like, okay, I really don't care how much I get in this. I was hoping that maybe I would try to, with some of the leftover stuff, try to maybe get a line of 3 kind of going down the center. And I ended up getting a line of 3 going down the center and down the side. So it ended up a little bit better than I thought, but yeah, that's what I was trying to do. And then I ended up going one short on that as well on my income, I think. And somehow I got it behind you by 1, and then you ended up taking that building from me as well, which
Yeah, that was,
really hurt again.
yeah, I was right behind you, and you go. And I went, matched you, you took your income. I went up there, and I got
Yes.
that building.
Yes. Because, yeah, I think it was a little bit easier for you to get your bonus resources
Yeah.
through your civilization than me. I think it just took me a little longer to be able to get it, just because
Yeah, because you got
it took so long to get those out there.
Yeah, you have to explore, put a tile down, explore that tile, correct?
Right.
Or
And I had to,
conquer,
had to
conquer that
had to
tile.
also I had
and
to
then
expand
gain,
while
and then
also
gain a building
right,
to put on there.
right.
So I just had to get a building, cover some dots.
Right, right, for sure. Yeah, and then it kind of played out. I lucked out because in my next one, I had the marriage of state. So
Yes.
I knew
I was
you were
very
probably going to
angry about that.
head up the military track. I didn't know how far you were going to go up a bit, but you were about halfway, and then I got to copy, gain any benefit that you got along that specific track is the one I picked, and you ended up giving me
You gained probably
4 benefits from it, I
a
think.
couple of the best ones.
Yeah, I got to conquer, and then I got to get a red building, and got some victory points for my Tapestry cards, and then also got some points for that track, and then also played another Tapestry card, because the last two actions I felt like weren't really going to benefit me on that one, because I was going to cover it if I did that. And that got me another tile laid down, which I was also able to conquer with the Cartography Civilization, or Tapestry card, which was, again, one of the things I had to do was try to just keep expanding as far as I could to get more out there to take better advantage of that. But then, what happened after that? I'm trying to remember kind of how that went down. What did you do after that?
Oh yeah, right before you laid down yours, I was lucky enough to get this Dystopia Tapestry card.
But that was after, that was when, that was another thing. Because at that time too, I had gotten one space away on the blue track from the second building.
Getting this big one right here.
And then what does he do?
I move up, get to play a Tapestry card.
That's what happened, I remember.
And I got this Dystopia card that lets me snag any landmark building. So I took that right.
So at this point in the game, he had taken two of the
Stole this
was
one.
it two of the 3x3 buildings?
Stole that one. Yep.
And also one of the 2x2. So he's, at this point, he had already stolen 3 buildings from me. Which, I mean, I hadn't really planned on filling this that much.
22 squares of
right.
space.
So it wasn't that awful, but at the same time, it's like him getting those versus me not getting them. That was quite a bit of a swing, especially for what you were trying to do.
Because I mean, I didn't even have to care about fitting it in.
Right.
Fitting the shape to my...
Right, and that was the thing too. I mean, getting those big shapes and not having to worry about that impassable land is huge in that case. So, I mean, you definitely succeeded in getting the big buildings like you had wanted to from the beginning of the game. And then, kind of the late game, surprisingly, I had no intention of doing this. But you had reached the end of that track and gotten another civilization, which was
the first of my 3 extra civilizations.
This guy
was the Craftsman, which kind of went against what I was doing, because on this one, whenever you gain one of your income buildings, you can place it on this mat and gain the reward. When I was pretty much already set on
trying to filling
that up. But I did end up playing 3 on there.
For 3 resources, so it wasn't awful for you at all.
Yeah, that wasn't that bad. But I wish I could have gotten this maybe a little earlier on to maybe get some of those points or better rewards.
Right. It definitely was not one of the best ones you could have gotten.
No.
And then you also got...
I also got the...
Because how did you get these last ones?
Because I went there, got the first one, then I moved up to this repeat action.
Repeated an action.
Which also got, by moving there, got me a big landmark building. Then I got the militants, which, as you conquer lands, you remove your outposts from here. And at this point, when I got this, I had no outposts left. And every income you are going to gain what is on
everything
here.
On there.
So that has revealed 10 points for me. And
Which you were able to score
never
once.
able to make use of the resources, but the extra 10 points was nice.
Yeah. It was definitely better than the Craftsman for you.
Yeah.
Because it actually gave you something that was just an instant thing that you got versus having to work towards something.
Yeah.
So that one was definitely a lot better, considering you did do as much conquering as you had at that point.
Yeah. The treasure hunters, I place 4 player markers on here, and every income I get to move one to an adjacent territory. And for the type of land that is, I will gain a certain benefit. And a lot of them are rolling of dice. I think I used one to roll the research die to move up a track, and then I ended up with my final one rolling the red die twice
and
for
gaining
points,
a benefit.
and gaining both benefits. And that ended up being 2 5s for 10 points.
Right. So it wasn't awful, but it could have been a lot better for you if you had rolled the 2 sides that give you the amount for how many outposts you had.
Because I had 11 controlled areas.
That could have been 22 points versus 10. But so I mean, yeah, you gain that one by going up the rest of the science track and going back one.
I went back one there.
And then coming back forward again to get that last 1. For 4 civilizations. I don't think I've ever had 4. I think I've had 3 maybe one time. I'm typically not one to get extra.
I think I had 3
civilizations.
once. But yeah, 4 is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had to go. When I saw that I could do it, I'm like, okay, I got to get 4.
Wow. So he got 4 civs, and he's gotten all these different buildings that I have just been robbed of the whole game. So, yeah, then at that point I had gotten all the way up the yellow track and had decided, and been kind of trying to keep all the mushrooms type shapes that I had to try to get as far up on the blue track as I could, because at that point I was about halfway up.
Yeah.
So I was just going up that, and I thought, well, at least I'll get to the spaceship. because why wouldn't I? Because
why wouldn't I?
With your resources, it didn't look like you were right here or here.
I was right. I had moved up here with one of these moves, but yeah, I was right here and you were ahead of me.
Right. So yeah, I was ahead of him, and I'm like, okay, I should be able to get this as long as everything doesn't go wrong for me. And then you went up on the science track to go up twice first, which got you here actually. I think, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was right here.
Yeah. So you were less than halfway. You still had you had 4 spaces to go until you would take the spaceship, and I only had 2. So I thought I would have it.
You thought. And of course, yeah, I used the science. I moved up twice, getting both of those benefits, which was really nice. Saved me 6 resources for those 2 spots. Got me the brown building, which ended up getting me a lot of points. Yeah, all the browns.
Yeah, that's
and
15
and
point
exploring, which got me, I believe it got me the...
I'll get you a great building probably.
Oh yeah, which I placed down here.
Oh,
which ended up getting me the great resource, which gave me enough to get to the end of the great track. So then I was right there.
And then
I moved to the end of the science track.
After I had moved another space up on the blue track, so I was still short of the spaceship.
Yes.
And then
I roll. So the final one is you get to roll the science die 4 times without gaining the benefit, and if it sends you off the end of the track, you would get 5 points. I rolled. I hit military. I was at the end. I get 5 points. Then I rolled the exploration track. Moved 1 spot before the spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And I rolled, got the science
for another 5
points. And I rolled again, and I got the exploration track again, moving into the final tier and stealing. I think we can call it that, stealing.
the fourth building from me. Like this isn't usually a take that game. I think there was like our first game we ever played or something. I think that Dystopia felt like a take that.
Yeah.
Because I think you had it that time too, and you stole a building from me. But this game felt like take that because it felt like he was taking every building.
I stole every building from this track
on the blue. So that just did not really work out for me that well.
And with that, I had exactly 2 mushrooms left, so that set me up perfectly to go and grab some space.
And go to space.
It couldn't have been a better roll.
Right, because he got the 10 point, and he's over here on the tech track, barely up. I mean, it would do him absolutely nothing to go up there, and he hits the 2 for 10 points and puts himself in the perfect spot on this one. It was pretty amazing. Pretty lucky, I think. But
a little luck, I would say. But yeah, and with the space tile that I did end up getting, I got to remove my final brown building, which got me 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up getting me a building here, which would end up scoring me 4 points for my lines.
Yeah, so that was pretty big as well.
14 points.
I did end up getting to the end of the space track, but it didn't really. And I played all the space tiles I'd gotten. The exploration.
It's space track to us.
It's space track when you get up there.
About.
So I did end up getting to place one of these buildings out onto the board. I could have done that the whole game, but I barely had any buildings throughout the entire game because you took them all, which is good. I mean, it's what you're trying to do there. It did feel very take that-y, even though it wasn't really. Maybe the spaceship at the end was a little take that-y. It was a little overkill.
I had no choice.
That was a little overkill. yeah, so I had gotten that, and I got to roll the green die, which is what allowed me to do it. Luckily, that was the first luck I had, and it seemed like all game. I rolled the green die with my first space tile to actually go up on the exploration, because I didn't have the resources to do it. And then I played my other two, which got me a few points. It wasn't really anything amazing. I didn't get any great space tiles, like you would have. But yeah, then we ended with final scores of the Nomads with 252, and the Riverfolk with 311. Which I felt like, I hung in there a little more than I thought I would. I mean, I didn't focus on this at all, and I didn't even get to where I scored 2 points per line, which is not typical for me at all. I still had 4 of the gray buildings left. It looks like you, sadly, were not able to get another gray building.
Get my final gray, second to final gray building.
That would have.
But I actually didn't have that many lines.
What were you even doing with these buildings?
With my benefit, I wanted to quickly get the red dots, which kind of, in some situations, doesn't really. You kind of create your own obstacles for the bigger buildings. Like this, the spaceship that I stole from you really was of no use to me. It only got me 1 line.
Wow.
Because I had put
a
building there to get a quick resource for covering up a dot. So I ended up with a lot of just little gaps in my city that were hard to fill.
So I think that's probably how I hung in there, because I guess in my mind I was thinking, oh boy, he's going to score a ton of points off of that. So I guess that's probably part of how you still won by 60 points, which, I thought this would be the better one by far. Well, maybe not by far. You did have a few things go your way, I think, that help. I mean, being able to, getting this card, the Dystopia card, out of all the cards, with this civilization definitely helped. I don't know if I don't think I really had a great one that went with what I was doing.
I had a couple good ones. I also had whenever you place an income building in your capital city, gain 3 points, which was pretty much my main focus.
And for the expansion, we played with the starting buildings. Mine was to get 6 tiles, which wasn't really great because I was always trying to play them. But my other options were not great either, based on, I think they both had to kind of do with your city, which I wasn't really planning on playing, and if I didn't have to.
So luckily you handed those to me, and I got to do the one where I need at least 3 income buildings of the same type, which was good. I just went.
You did it really quickly on the red.
Yeah.
It probably, it was pretty quick.
And it was the biggest one left. It's almost 3 by 3, so I really wanted that.
Right, that was definitely the one to pick. But yeah, I think it kind of played out about how I thought. I think they're pretty evenly matched. I think the Nomads would be a lot tougher than the Riverfolk if you were playing with more people, just because I think the board. Like if we had a third player here, it would have been a lot harder for us to both kind of spread out. I don't know if it would have been quite as easy to use the Nomads then. So, but I think in a 2-player game, they're definitely a pretty good one if you're willing to just focus mainly on exploration and military, at least right away, to kind of spread out and get yourself set up to, once you get these buildings off, place them out there quick. And a good thing too is you can use it as a kind of a defensive move if you don't have any trap cards, to kind of try to play a second building out there so no one can try to conquer you.
I had a trap card in my hand. Well, I had one, then I ended up playing it because you wouldn't come after me. Then I drew another one, and I was waiting for you to get me.
I wasn't going to come after you.
And I was hoping with that final science
knowing how lucky you were,
that you were going to roll military and attack me, and I'd be able to play it on my
I didn't have any outposts left. So
well,
that's why I said I'll probably roll the military, because that one does me absolutely nothing. But luckily I did not. I finally got a good die roll. Yeah. I guess, in conclusion, I would say, how easy do you think it'd be to use Riverfolk for a newer player?
I think for a newer player, not really that they would. Like obviously, I didn't do it the best I could have. I have a lot of gaps in my city, but I think that could free them up a little bit for placing their city for the first game.
I think it's actually a pretty good one to get as one of your first games because you start with some victory points, and then it also gives you that little leeway of not really worrying about impassable land. It may not teach them the right way to play the game, so you might forget, like in a later play, if you used it, like this is the first thing you ever used.
Good for them to strategize with, but it'll help their gameplay go a little smoother.
Right, and it's a pretty easy way to get some extra resources, which in Tapestry is the total key. It's optimizing your resources, getting as many resources as you can. I think that's the way to get as high a score as you possibly can in Tapestry. Yeah. If you're not getting resources, then it's gonna be tough to get brick 300 or get any higher scores than that. I think.
Correct.
But I think the Nomads are gonna be a little tougher, and if you're gonna want to use the Civ, I mean you don't have to, but if you're wanting to use it for what it is, you're gonna basically be focusing on the military and exploration tracks. Almost the entire game, and it takes a little bit more. I think this one's a little tougher. I wouldn't give this to someone I don't think on their first couple plays of Tapestry. Not that you couldn't do it. I think it's just gonna, especially like if it was your first play. Whereas if I had someone play this the first time, I wouldn't feel like they're gonna be really confused as to what. Yeah. They might forget like to get a resource or something, but I don't think there'd be that much confusion. Whereas this, I think it just takes a little more planning. And being efficient with what you're doing. So I would not recommend this one right away.
This one, I mean, I did want to go up the military and exploration, but you don't really have to go up those. It doesn't, where yours pretty much tells you have to go up those two tracks.
Right, to kind of spread out and get something out there. I mean, I guess you don't have to necessarily, since you can play it on a building itself, so you could just try to get a ton of buildings, I guess. Which is something I actually did not realize until
you could just play a building and then another building.
Yeah. So I mean, I could have done it slightly differently, but
you still would need to place some tiles out there.
Right. You still have to place tiles out there, so then you have to go up the exploration. But I guess then you could maybe go up something else as well. I would not recommend the Nomads for a first-time player. Riverfolk, I think, would be one of the ones that I would. Yeah. But I think they're probably. Would you say they're middle part of the road for powerfulness, or?
I would say on a scale of 1 to 5, I'd probably go maybe 3.5.
On both of them, or on that one?
On this one, Riverfolk. I don't think. It's nice getting the resources, but I didn't feel like it was huge, like game-breaking. And yours as well. I would say it's a little less powerful. Probably just a 3.
Yeah. I think those are I think that's about spot on. I think just the way I play, I feel like this is easier, but I think you're right that it's probably a 3.5 and a 3. I think that's right on with how powerful they kind of are, and I think they're pretty well balanced in a 2-player game. I think if I had just had a couple things go my way, it could have flipped slightly the other way as well. So in summary, I would say that if you're playing as the Nomads, you would try to go out and maybe conquer as much territory, get as many buildings as you possibly can, and try to get those bonus resources. I think that's what you'd kind of base your strategy around when playing those.
Yeah, with the Riverfolk, I think it'd probably be about the same. You go out, you get buildings, get the extra resources, covering up the impassable lands, and just keep extending your turns and try to snag as many landmarks as you can.
Yep. So, next time on TapTalk, we are going to be playing the Entertainers and the Alchemists.
Some of my least favorite.
we'll have to see next time if there's something you can actually strategize around, or if they're a little more luck-based.
Just plain luck.
But let us know below if you have any questions on the Nomads or the Riverfolk, and we can try to answer them the best we can.
Tell us your strategies.
Yeah, tell us if you think we totally played these wrong, should have tried something else, and we might have to go back and try it. Otherwise, if you have any suggestions on a combo of two civilizations you'd like to see, also leave a comment below on those as well.
Yeah.
We will see you next time.
Keep on nibbling.